Father, forgive me. Good evening. That's just to let the students around the world know that we have classes and that somebody's here beside me. My understanding of the point made during the first session that God is not mind is, as you explained last night, mind is a reasoning faculty, which seems to refer to the human mind. Will you please clarify? It must really be understood that there is only one mind. Unless you understand that there is only one mind, you will make the eternal mistake that has been made ever since Adam and Eve. You will have good and evil. Or you will change the terminology and say we have a divine mind and a mortal mind, or a divine mind and a human mind. Now, there are not two minds. There is only one mind. And that mind is yours. It is not you. It is yours, just as much as your body is your body. Now, the mind is a reasoning faculty, or as we use the terminology in the infinite way, it is an avenue of awareness. Through the mind, I know that you are here, but I can't create you. Therefore, mind cannot be God, because it is not creative. Mind is an avenue of awareness. With my mind, or through my mind, I know that this is a tumbler of water. But my mind cannot make it so. My mind cannot create it. That is one of the terrible faults of many forms of metaphysics, that they're trying to use the mind to create supply, or to create a home, or to create companionship, or to create health. Now understand that God is the only creative principle, and God is spirit. God acts through law. God is a lawgiver. The creative principle of the universe, the maintaining and sustaining principle, but mind cannot be that. Now there is no reason why you cannot, if you wish, take the word mind and put a capital M before it and make it a synonym for God and say, oh, that is not the mind I'm talking about. If you do, you have to have two minds. Now actually, that is what Mrs. Eddy did. She took the word mind and put a capital M before it, making it a synonym for God. She put a small m and called it the mortal mind or the human mind. Thereby she had two minds and said there is only one mind. Now, as I came into this work, I naturally used mind as a synonym for God. And it is for that reason that in many of my writings you will still see mind used as a synonym for God. There's nothing wrong about it if you understand that it's not literally truth. It's just we have coined, or rather Mrs. Eddy coined, and we've continued to use a capital M mind, a small m mind, but at the same time insist there is only one mind. Now what I'm trying to do is to say to you that even though you continue to use a capital M mind as a suffer it to be so now, just the way Jesus allowed himself to be baptized, not because he believed in it, not because he approved of it, because he definitely said, suffer it to be so now. It's all right if you want it that way. The same way that he said before Lazarus' tomb, I don't have to pray, but here are these ignorant people here who expect me to, so I will say, Lazarus, come forth. But I don't have to do that. It isn't I who am raising Lazarus, it's God. Now, there is no particular harm in using mind with a capital M as a synonym for God, except that it's going to perpetuate in your mind two minds. And when that happens, you watch this, you're going to use one to overcome the other. You're going to have one of them, the good mind, and one, the bad mind. And so you're going to use immortal mind to overcome mortal mind. And what we are trying to do in the infinite way is get away from that. And the only way to get away from that is this: to recognize that there is no power in any effect, whether that effect is a mind or a body, and have a power only in God, and then have the mind and the body as instruments to show forth the power of the Spirit or God. Now, through my mind and through my body, I show forth God's glory. That is, in the intelligent use of my mind and in the intelligent use of my body, I show forth God's glory. But it isn't the glory of my mind or body, and it isn't my personal glory. It is the glory of the Father, the Spirit, God. So then, try to realize this. We do not have a capital S soul and a small s soul. We don't have a capital S spirit and a small s spirit. We don't have a capital P principle and a small p principle. We have only one. And that one is God in action. Now, as a matter of fact, none of them are God. None of them are God. There can't ever be a word that is God. I hope you understand that not even the word God is God, and that the word mind or soul or spirit or truth isn't God. For those are effects objective to yourself. That's why a lot of praying is useless. We pray to a word in our mind. We pray to the word God, or we pray to the word soul, we pray to the word spirit, and we expect an answer from it. When the we that is doing the praying is the God power, I. I is the God power. There are no other words, there is no other word in all the vocabulary that is really a synonym for God. There are no synonyms for God in absolute truth. The synonyms that we use for God really are descriptive of attributes of God. The word soul is an attribute of the absoluteness and purity of God. The word mind really is an attribute describing intelligence. The word spirit is an attribute really describing the incorporeality of God. The word principle is another attribute. Law is one of the facets of God being. None of those things are really God. There is only one word that describes God. And when Moses was given this revelation of the true name of God, it took him from being a shepherd and transformed him quickly into the leader of the Hebrew people. Only one thing did that: the realization of the true nature of God. I am that I am. That's what did the trick for him. Now, when Jesus came, did he not follow that same teaching and declare, I am that I am? I am the way and the truth and the life. I am the bread and the wine and the water. I have meat ye know not of. I am the resurrection. That's the true name for God. Now, because the Hebrews persisted in misusing it, or at least the leaders feared they might, they didn't reveal this word to them. They permitted only the high priest to know the secret of this name, and they were not allowed to mention it unless they were in the inner sanctuary, standing before the altar. Then they could use this word, I am. No other time. Now, if you will remember, when King Solomon built his temple at Jerusalem, he promised that he would give every working man who stayed on the job until the temple was completed a certain password. And if these men learned the password, it would enable them to travel in far places and earn a master's wages. Just the possession of this password would give them the right to a master's wage. But no one could have this password until they had passed through every stage of building, all the way from the lowest apprentice up to the master. Then, when they had become a master, they could have this word. Symbolically, this means this: the Hebrews, as an ignorant, illiterate, uncultured, unspiritual people, were the apprentices, the lowest grade of human society, and they could never have this password, for it would do them no good. But if they worked themselves up through the various stages of humanhood until they arrived at a place of discernment, a place of masterhood, now we will give you this word, and in this high understanding you will understand it, and you will go out into the world and you'll command a master's wages. Well, some event took place there that prevented Solomon from giving this password, and so it was lost. And for some purposes it is still lost, but actually it has been rediscovered. It was rediscovered by a 33rd degree Mason who spent 30 years of his life searching for it. And he finally found that word. And you're not a bit surprised when I tell you that that word is, I am. That's the secret word of King Solomon, which was lost, and which, if it were given to a person of high enough understanding who had worked themselves up out of dense humanhood to where they knew the difference between good spiritual literature and bad, or true and untrue, then this password would illumine them, and they would go away and be free beings. Now, all you need to know the proof of that is that it's the secret of the work of Christ Jesus. It's his secret word. I am that I am. I am the way, the truth, the life. Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me, for I and the Father are one. Now, we have the same condition today. If we tell an ordinary person, not developed or trained in spiritual wisdom, if we say to them, I am God, they run right out, and in their fear they say, oh, Joel says he's God. I see, Joel didn't say he was God at all. No, he never said that. He said, I am God. But it could just as well have been John or Mary or Bill or anybody else. The truth is still the truth. I am God. Nobody said Joel is God. I am God. Now the result is that there are people, and there is a literature that's available today which actually teaches that you are God. Not that I am God. No, you are God. That's not true. You aren't God, I am. But you'll know how true that is if you will look up here at me and say, I understand. You're not saying you are God, you're saying I am. Now you begin to perceive that I am not deifying a human being. I am saying that the I of me is God, but the I of me is the I of you, for there is only one I, there is only one ego, there is only one I am, there is only one divine life, which I am. Do you see that? I am the way and the truth and the life. I am the resurrection. I have meat that ye know not of. But you have the same right to say that, because I haven't copyrighted that statement. And Moses' copyright has run out. Now, when you hear the statement that man is God, don't believe it, for it isn't true. If you hear somebody say, I am God, don't believe it, it isn't true. Even if you hear somebody say, I am a mystic, don't believe it, it isn't true. These things are so sacred, so secret, that they may only be voiced in the inner sanctuary of a spiritual temple, and that's where we are. Those of you who have been in our work for this last 10 years or more know how sacred this classroom is to me, how pure it's kept, how every attempt is made to keep the atmosphere of our classroom pure, spiritual, divine, above every trace of humanhood, above all the entertaining, above all the kowtowing to wealth or fame or fortune, or none of that has ever taken place in this classroom. And you out here who have been here for 10 years or more, you know it. You know it. You have seen that this work is kept pure. Therefore, I consider that this room is the temple of God. It's as holy to me as the temple at Jerusalem was to Solomon. It's as holy to me as Galilee when Jesus walked there. It's as holy to me as the mountain on which Moses received his illumination, because this is the place whereon we stand in spiritual integrity, and this is pure ground here, and either I am a teacher qualified and ordained to tell you the highest truth, or you shouldn't be here. If you cannot feel that you are ready to receive the highest truths that are revealed, this isn't your place. But if I didn't feel that you were ready to take every bit of truth that is revealed to me through this that flows through me, that has produced this infinite way literature, and through me has carried it around the world, then I wouldn't want to be here. I wouldn't want to be teaching you. And I cannot teach you anything less than God puts in my mouth. Now, study the great religions of the world, and you will find that it wasn't only the Hebrews and the Christians who knew the secret of I am. You will find that this is the secret of 3 other major religions. This is the secret of the Advaita of India. There's only one Advaita temple in India. Those who are part of its secrets are but few, very few. And those few know that I am God. In China, there is nothing left of the original teaching that knew this, the teaching of Lao Tzu. There's nothing left at all of that. There is some Taoist religion, but it has degenerated completely into a religion of ceremonies, rites, and creeds, with not even a literature left of this nature, although there is in England an order, the Shrine of Wisdom, which is dedicated to the original Lao Tzu teaching, which is this same oneness. So it is. We do have ancient religious teachings that know this secret, and they don't teach it openly to the masses. They can't. None of the Christian religions have been able to teach it to the masses. They can't. And every once in a while somebody does write a book sincerely revealing it. And I think the most interesting book of that nature that is available in our literature of today is published in England by the Oxford Press, and is called the Book of English Mystical Verse, or Oxford Book of English Mystical Verse. And in there you will find probably 100 British mystics, English mystics, each one of whom has revealed this secret, each one of whom has experienced it, and therefore is able to reveal it. And one of them was bold enough to say, which is truth, before God was, I am. Because if you'll go back in your own mind, take the word mind, and see if that isn't something objective to you. Objective or subjective, but behind it is you who is declaring it. The word life, soul, spirit, law, truth, love, aren't those all words? Aren't you declaring them? Which is greater, the words or you? When you get through with all those words and you say, wait a minute, I must find God. I can't find God in a word out here. Now what's the next word that I can use? Well, that's another word, and another word. And as you keep going, you'll come back and ultimately you'll say, the last word there is I. Oh, well, I. That is neither objective nor subjective. That's the I that I am, the knower. Now I can say it is the knower and the known. That which knows and that which is known, I am both. I am He. And then you find there really is only one word for God. I, or the term I am, is the only word for God. Then what happens? Now you can say, well, that's true. God is love. Love is an attribute of God. God is mind. Well, intelligence is an attribute of God. God is soul. Purity is an attribute. Spirit is an attribute. Law is an attribute. Oh, yes, those are facets of God's being. But God's being is what? Oh, there's being out there again. That's another one of those words. But who's declaring being? I am being. Is there any other being than the I am being? No, I am the only being. I am being. I am that I am. I am. I am the meat. I am the wine. I am the water. Thank you, Father, I am. I and my Father are one. I am that one. Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me. I and the Father are one. And then you find this. Now, as you go back in our literature and in our tapes, you will find this. If I say I am God, I am a liar. Because it is really Joel saying it, and Joel can't be God. But the Infinite Way teaches that you must not ever say I am God. You must listen and hear the words I am God. Then God is uttering itself. Now, if I say I am God, then every word I speak ought to cure the sick and raise the dead, open the eyes of the blind. Why doesn't it happen? Well, I guess that Joel just isn't God. That's all. He might as well make up his mind to that. But I have never seen it fail that when I went back into the kingdom of my own being, in peace and in quiet, and then the voice said, fear not, I am here. That's it. He uttered his voice, the earth, the error melted. I am the instrument, just as Jesus said, if I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. I'm only a witness to God's word. The word is closer to me than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The word is I. But I mustn't say I. I must hear I. Now, when I'm in treatment, which means that I'm merely getting at peace within myself, the minute I feel that stirring, that's God on the scene, and a healing takes place, or an improvement takes place, because nothing ever can stand in the way of that. Nothing. I could voice it from now to doomsday and nothing happened. But if it voices itself through me, and when you read the Infinite Way books and hear the tapes with this in mind, you'll see that that's our teaching. The teaching isn't that Joel is God. The teaching isn't that Bill or Mary is God. The teaching is that I am God, and not by virtue of saying it, but by virtue of hearing it. And so you'll notice that in all our treatments, we say that no matter what truth you know, end up with, now, Father, it's your turn. I will listen for thy voice. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. And that's the second part of your treatment, but that's really the important part. And when you're advanced far enough, it's the only part. You don't need the first part. In other words, you don't have to first build yourself up to listening. You're living always in that state of consciousness. That is why sometimes our students do not understand that we do very little of public living. We accept so few invitations that it's almost negligible. And the few that we do are with students with whom we're working at that moment in some branch of the work. Why? Because we want to live in this. We don't want to be brought out of it. We don't want to come down to the earth and then have to go away for 40 days to build up again because we don't have time. Every day we have to be somewhere. And do you know that some days we're 2 and 3 times on a platform in a day, and then having 6, 8, and 10. On this trip we have had as many as 19 interviews in a day, plus 2 lectures, plus 50 to 60 letters mailed out. and then kept up the monthly letter and writing new books. Now, you know that you have to live in this to be able to do it, and you can't allow yourself to come out. Now, I learned in my practice that the very successful practitioners, those who had reputations for being good healers, lived that same kind of a life. They never came out into the world. They may have gone to a show once in a while just to break the strain of dealing continuously with sickness and sin, but on the whole, they went out very little. Even when they went out to restaurants to eat, they went off in a corner somewhere alone, and they kept this atmosphere. They kept this attitude of being in the Spirit. Then when calls came, they didn't have to sit up all night to get into the atmosphere to heal. They were ready right there at the drop of a hat. Now, whether I'm traveling on the road or whether I'm home in Hawaii, do you know that there are anywhere from 3, 6, 7, 8 long-distance telephone calls every night between midnight and 6 in the morning, and then 6 or 7 in the morning begins the day's telephones? Do you see that you have to live in this atmosphere to be able to carry such work? And in order to live in it, you don't go around bombastically declaring, I am God. You don't go around saying, I am a great mystic. You don't go around saying, oh, I have a worldwide... you don't do that. You live in this thing and you realize what the truth is. The nearer you get to being a master, the more of a servant you are. You're everybody's servant. You're every student's servant. You're the servant of every claim of error, and you're supposed to be there to serve. And you only do that not by declaring who you are, but by declaring your nothingness. I am of my own self nothing. I can of my own self do nothing or be nothing and know nothing. I have told students this. Every once in a while I have to clear myself, clear my thought, and realize, look, let me be sure of this. I don't know any truth. Anything that I thought I knew yesterday is yesterday's manna. Anything I knew yesterday has nothing to do with today. I don't know anything. Now let me get in the silence, and Father, you tell me a couple of secrets. And then I receive fresh inspiration. Then there can be a new class. Then there can be a new book. Then there can be a new monthly letter. Then there can be new healings. But the minute I get to depending on the truth that I knew yesterday, I'm depending on a carcass. Even if I call it life, truth, love, and mind. It's a dead letter. And it won't heal. The only thing that heals is the Word of God, a fresh inspiration that comes through. It may use that old language, but it's fresh and it's new, and I didn't think it with the mind. It came up out of the depths of my soul. So it is. You don't know the pain it gives me when a student sometimes says to me, and they do, or write to me, you know, I have a good understanding. And I say, oh God, why didn't I get there and get one of those good understandings? How is it you didn't do that for me? I don't know anything until I sit down and the voice speaks to me. And it says something sometimes new and sometimes old. I have had wonderful healings with statements that ordinarily we wouldn't even understand what they meant. It is only because the meaning came with the statement. And so it is. You know, I speak of this so often to our students, you'll probably hear it on many tapes, of how I was standing or sitting here giving a class in San Francisco, when out of my mouth the words came, my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea, and I slapped myself this way and said, oh, Father, is that true? That really happened. Out it came, my conscious oneness with God. I'd never heard it before. The idea had never presented itself to me, and then all of a sudden I saw how true that is. If I am consciously one with God, I am one with your spiritual identity. That's what drew you here. You have only been drawn here because I'm one with God. You weren't looking for a man. You weren't looking even for someone with a white robe. When you were drawn here, you were drawn here to seek truth or God. And it was because I was living in meditation and I was consciously one with God, you were drawn here. You weren't advertised for. You weren't sent for. Do you understand that? Do you realize that? You came because you were drawn. Now, what were you drawn to? Well, you didn't know. Many of you had never seen me. All you'd read was a book or so. And then you were drawn. You were drawn because of my oneness with God. Now, not only you were drawn, those who buy and read these books are drawn. Those who come for healing are drawn. Even the publishers who publish the books are drawn and come and say, may we publish your writings. We have no agent to go out seeking publishers. Publishers come and say, may we publish. We write now. We have 3 letters waiting my arrival in England where publishers in Germany and Austria are waiting for the German translations. We couldn't seek them. They sought us. Do you see that? Now, it is the same identical way with everything. You can forget this world and turn within and realize that closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, is something called I. It's better even than saying God, because God is that word out here again. But I is me, the presence, the power. And then you realize, oh, the very fact that this I is here, Jesus called it the Father within me, within my consciousness, within my being, within myself. The mere fact then that the Father is within me means I am at one with my Father. Not I will be after I read books. Not I will be after I go to class. No. I go to class to learn that I always have been, since before Abraham, one with my Father. Oh, this teaching doesn't make you one with your Father. This teaching establishes in you the realization that since before Abraham was, I and my Father were one. And then you realize, well then, if I am one with God, I am at one with all that God is. Well, God is supply, God is a high tower, God is a fortress, God is the health of my countenance, God is my strength. Oh, now what's missing? Do you see that? That is meditation, contemplation, treatment, or prayer. Anything that makes you realize that God is closer to you than breathing. Anything that makes you realize that the I in the midst of you is mighty. Anything that makes you realize that the I within you is the power of resurrection. It's that which restores the lost years of the locust. That I within your own being. Now, when you know that, you can call God mind or life or truth or love or soul. You can call God principle. You can call God Christ. Substance, it makes no difference. Because all you're talking about now is not God, but terms defining attributes of God. No one can ever define God for you, because I is indefinable. You can't even know what you are. All you have to do is ask yourself, who am I, what am I, and you'll find you're a mystery to yourself. You'll have to admit in the end that your mother never knew you, your father never knew you, your wife or your husband never knew you, your children never knew you, because there is an I here which has never been known to anybody. And only a psychiatrist would try to define it for you. And you know what happens to him? Is that clear on I now? All right. And let us not worry about terminology. The mind really is a faculty, and through that faculty I've been talking to you and you've been listening. But if we don't rise above that faculty, we'll stay in the intellect. There has to be something behind that faculty that I can reach, or Moses can reach, or Jesus can reach, or else you'll have to hear him say again, do you have eyes and do not see? Do you have ears and do not hear? And I'm not talking about your outer eyes and ears. I'm talking about your spiritual discernment. Now this question says, are our days numbered? They are numbered with infinity. They are numbered from 1 to infinity, but nothing less, and don't settle for less. And explain reincarnation. No, I touch on that in the writings, and very lightly, because you are entitled to understand that subject as it unfolds to you, rather than to accept somebody else's version of what it means. No matter what I would say to you, it will not satisfy you, that I can tell you. Because it happens to be, what I would tell you, happens to be my individual experience. And why should that satisfy you unless you had the experience? So therefore, when you yourself have an experience, you will have an interpretation for that wonderful experience of reincarnation. Last night you mentioned that as we came through the experience of birth, the I was right there with us, watching us through. Will you kindly clear this question? What you're trying to ask is this, that if the I is there, why is it that a child may be born sick or dumb or dead? But actually you haven't thought this question through, because you could have said also, if the I is present here now, why do we ever commit a sin, or why do we ever lack, or why are we ever sick? And certainly you don't question that the I is here and now. Now the answer to that is this. All of human experience is a sense of separation from that I. And as long as that sense of separation exists in you, you are subject to birth, maturity, death, accident, sin, limitation. When, through a spiritual teaching or experience, you awaken to this lesson that we have had here tonight, that I is closer to me than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. This I which I am is in the very midst of me, and then you learn to meditate, to ponder, to contemplate, until that comes alive in you. After that, you do not sin, you do not die, you are never poor, you have no hard experiences. You have problems. As long as we have relatives and friends, as long as... Yes, I'll go further. As long as we have patients and students, we have problems, because I have made your life my problem. I am struggling with you to get across to you this principle. I'm struggling with you to bring you out of sin, disease, death, lack, limitation, and so I've taken you on. And then every problem you have is mine until I can lift you out of it. Do you remember, those of you who have a Christian Science background, Mrs. Eddy's statement that if Jesus had never taken a student, he would never have been crucified? Well, that's an absolute truth. Had he retired up into the caves, he never would have been crucified. He would have just sat there enjoying his oneness with God, but he would have been miserably unhappy, because he'd have known all about us down on the plain, And he longed. You remember how he longed to put his arm around Jerusalem? They wouldn't let him. So he would have sat up there being miserable with his happiness. Well, it's really true. It's really true. How happy do you think I'd be sitting out in Hawaii tonight? Oh, no. Pack a bag for me and give me a good long air ticket. And I'll be happy. And I'll eat in good restaurants or lunchrooms. It'll make no difference. If you could see some of the rooms we've slept in on these trips, you'd know that you have to love this work. But there it is, you see. If you were left to yourself, you'd go off in the corner, you'd realize this I, you'd live with it, and you'd find no problems. But you would have this, that your love for mankind would so develop that you'd come down onto the plains and you'd say, oh, come, let me help you. And then Judas would come along with a knife. And Peter would come along and say, I never saw you. Thomas would come along and say, I doubt you. Somebody else would come along and say, you're commercial. But it all doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make a bit of difference if you are in this work, and many of you are, and many of you have had experience in healing. If you've seen one broken life redeemed, if you've seen one sick person. In 1921, St. Luke's Hospital in New York City gave me 3 months to live. They said my disease had never been cured in materia medica, and I'll tell you, it never has been to this minute either. It's still on the list of incurable diseases. You have only 3 months, so get ready for it. And I was healed in 3 months. Don't you think that for that practitioner, that their life was really made worthwhile by that experience? Surely. And so it was with another practitioner when I came to him as a businessman, struggling for some little idea of God, and in our meditation I had my illumination. And he was my friend from that time on, as long as he was on this plane. And don't you think that was a joy to him to know that through his life in this work he had changed another person from just an ordinary mortal human existence to one of helping others, healing others? Certainly, one experience of this kind is worth all of the pains that you go through, and even if it's crucifixion and in the end. Because in this work we have a wonderful opportunity to see people redeemed from unhappinesses, from sins, from diseases, from poverty. We see their whole lives rebuilt. And we say, well, what could ever take the place of that? All of that is worthwhile. And so you'll find it too, that when your time comes and you're in this work, you'll go through the heartaches of ungrateful students. Just go back and read Mrs. Eddy's history if you'd like to know some of it. It happens to everyone. And the very ones that you bless become the ones that turn the knife sometimes, some of them. Others merely forget. And you take all that because you can ignore that in looking out at these individuals whose lives have been redeemed, who've been turned to the spiritual path. And you say, well, what is all the rest of that worth? Nothingness. Do you see that? But it all comes down to the old thing. Spiritual truth is so sacred, so secret, that really you must only give the milk to your friends and relatives. The meat you save for those whom you know to be devoting themselves, giving of themselves to the work. And when you see them start to spend themselves, their time, their devotion, their effort, their money, then you can say, good, I can share these higher things with you, and at least in most cases, it will be worthwhile. And it will be, too. Because of different interpretations, we would appreciate the infinite way unfoldment of agree with thine adversary. Definitely that is this: agree instantly that there are no adversaries, because there is only one power. You will find on page 13 of the book, The Letters, the whole secret of spiritual healing. The entire secret's on one page. When you come to the realization that God is not to be used for the purpose of getting rid of error, but that error is to be recognized as no power, then you're in spiritual healing. Then you will be agreeing with your adversary. The adversary is sin, disease, and death. And the minute you agree that they are not enemies, they're not powers, they're just universal beliefs that have fooled us into accepting them as powers. But when you once begin to perceive that you're not in any religious teaching that teaches that there is a God that heals disease, or that there's a Christ that heals disease, those are just, well, that's just terminology, religious terminology. But it's not true. God never heals disease. God never did heal disease. God would be a cruel monster if he ever healed disease, because of all the other disease that he hasn't cured. If God had the power to cure you or me of disease, and he left all these other people in disease, you don't want that kind of a God even for your benefit. The secret of spiritual living and spiritual healing is God is your life. God is individual identity, individual being, and in him there is nothing that defileth or maketh a lie. Therefore, these appearances, which we call the adversary, whether you call them sin, disease, or death, or whether you call them mortal mind or carnal mind, if you recognize that they're not enemies, they're just thoughts, beliefs, appearances on the flesh or nothingness, you're the victor. But not while you treat them as evil. How would you teach children the truth? Now, from the infinite way standpoint, the answer is this: we teach it to the parents, and the parents live it. Then the children learn it. I am not convinced that children can be taught truth in 1 hour on Sunday. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying. I don't believe there's anything wrong with the Christian Science Sunday School. I think it's a fine institution. I merely say that I've never become convinced that they could teach your children to live spiritually. They can help in that 1 hour if they give your child a good teacher. But that which teaches a child is what you live 7 days a week. You can't tell a child God is love and keep slapping it in the face. You can't teach a child to trust God and keep punishing it. You can't lie to a child and make it a spiritual being. There never was a child that couldn't detect lies more quickly than an adult can. There never was a child that can't detect the lie in a person's life. You can't find a dog that can't know when you're lying. And you know that as well as I do. And so do children. There's only way to teach children: live the life you want them to learn. Because they're going to learn it one way or the other. Be assured of that. They're going to learn the life you're living. And if you're living a discordant and inharmonious life in your home, that's what they're learning. And if they get to find out, as they eventually do, that you don't keep promises to them, that you punish them unnecessarily or too harshly, instead of merely disciplining them in accordance with the thing, I know they're going to react to it. Now, of course, you're going to ask me if I'm a successful father, and I have to say no. I just learned it. But that's where we stand on it. I would have a Sunday school if I knew how to conduct one in a proper manner, but I don't. I only know this, that I can't expect any respect of my religious conviction in my home if I don't live it. Who knows sooner whether I'm lying or not than my wife or my child or whoever is living in my household? And how are they going to continue to respect me if I don't live what I voice? Well, your child is in that same position. They know whether or not you're living what you're voicing. And for their sakes, it's far better not to voice it than to voice it and not live it. So that takes care of two questions. Can you illustrate treatment of a child as a patient? The same as an adult. Exactly the same and no different. You never give a treatment to an adult and you never give a treatment to a child. When you are asked for help, your treatment is never aimed at the person who asked for it or at the child. Your treatment is your conscious union with God. And then those who have asked for help receive it. Or if a parent has brought their child to you, or their husband to you, or their parent to you, whoever has been brought to you through your patient or student receives the benefit of your consciousness. So you have to, you will find this in the writings true also. Treat your patient as respectfully as you do your dog. You don't ask your dog to be good in order to get healed, or to read 10 pages of a book, or to recite the Lord's Prayer. Now, you don't have to ask your patient either. All you have to do is be one with God. Your patient will be healed. When you teach your patient, now you haven't got a dog anymore, or an animal, or a bird. Now you're in a different category. When you're teaching, you have to teach all you know. But when you're healing, don't make their healing dependent on something. That we brought out last night. Don't make your patient's healing dependent on their getting well first, or giving up medicine, or being out of sin. Heavens, no, don't do that. Oh, we can keep going for another minute, can't we? Can one do anything for the departed ones who are material or mental minded, or should one leave them alone? Never leave anybody alone. Always know the truth. It makes no difference. Who said to begin with that they're materially minded or mentally minded? That's your concept of them. You have no idea what's going on inside of them. Not a bit. If we were to accept that appearance, we would never work in prison. And I don't mind telling you, I'm working right now in 3 prisons in the United States, and enjoying every single minute of it too. But if I were to believe that these people in prison are materially minded or mentally minded, I'd be lost. I know better than that. They're not anything like that at all. They are the I that I am. And the only reason they're in prison is they didn't find it out in time. Now, if they learn it, they'll work their way out of prison. So it is. If someone is passed on, don't hold them in condemnation to being a mortal, but realize not only that they are the I that I am, but probably by the act of passing they may even have awakened to that identity. This I will have to leave for another evening. And this, will you please explain further what an infinite way student can hope to achieve in regard to a chronically ill person? And the answer is this. What would they like you to accomplish? Do they want you to get them well, or would they like to stay chronically ill? Now, that may sound as if it were funny, but it isn't. There are loads of chronically ill people that wouldn't have it any other way if they could. An awful lot of joy in knowing that you don't have to go to work for a living or do housework or take care of the children anymore, that somebody else is doing it for you. And so it's nice and comfortable very often to be chronically ill. But if they're sincere and earnest and really want to work at spiritual truth, you can restore them to their normal spiritual harmony. Depends on them and on their devotion. Okay, anytime you're ready, you may do that, because I will just go on with what little I have here.